Hey, it's John at Tinderbox Arts. So, little quick video here on Subkick mics. And if you don't know what that is, I'll describe the concept behind it, and we'll talk about whether this is something you should do for yourself or not. Probably the answer is no, you shouldn't. And I've done a little experimentation to figure out, if this thing is worth it or not. But it's really more for fun than anything else. All right, so first the concept. It's really pretty simple. Normally a speaker has an electrical signal applied, a positive and negative side here, to these contacts here. It goes into the magnet, and that magnet, through electromagnetic force, moves the speaker cone back and forth to create an audible signal for us to hear. Well, we're just using this in reverse. So basically now, an analog or an audible signal, air pressure hits this cone, and that is affected at the magnet, and that creates an electrical signal and sends it back through whatever we have hooked up here. So it's a pretty simple concept, and it's not dissimilar from a microphone, but it's just a very crude microphone. All right, let's go over a few of the technical details here. So when you're connecting the speaker to your mixer, you need some kind of wire or cable to go in between. So there's different possibilities here. One is you can use, a 1/4-inch jack like this, male jack, and on the other end you'll connect it to the speaker. Now, one thing I'll mention right away is you'll see in a lot of forums where people claim that you need to hook up the positive and negative opposite of, what it's labeled. Their theory being that, because this is acting in opposite of a speaker as a microphone, in other words, input rather than output, their theory is that you need to reverse those two. Honestly, I tested both ways. I could not find any significant difference either way. So you're going to have two wires here. I don't think it matters which one you connect to which terminal. It seems to work just as well either way. But this is a mono 1/4-inch jack, and if you hook it up this way, the signal coming out is going to be line level, so it's pretty hot. And even at line level, it might be too hot for your mixer, which we'll talk about in a second. The other thing you could do is, use XLR inputs, and this would go right into your mixer. And in that case, you can set the gain on your mixer, but the signal coming out of the speaker still may be too hot. So what you can also do is get one of these or something like it, which is a direct input box. And so on one side, you're going to have the 1/4-inch jack, and on the other side, you're going to have an XLR. And this is basically a pad, so you can reduce the signal with a switch, or sometimes they're just built in, 10 dB or 20 dB reduction in the signal, whatever. But this is another option. So if you go this way, you have more control over the signal when you get to your mixer, and you can use the gain staging to get the signal right. Having said all that, I tried it basically all different ways. So I tried just with this, and I plugged it directly into my mixer, which happens to have a line level jack in it. And when I did that, the signal was a little bit hot, but it was usable on the particular speaker that I was using. I also tried it this way, and I actually did not need the pad. It was just enough like it is, and I just used gain staging to get the right gain level. And what I also discovered was that the mixer seems to like it a little bit hot. If I set the levels the way I would a regular microphone or something like that, it didn't sound as good. So I had it hot enough where it was actually clipping, and that actually sounded a little bit better. So you need to play around with it. Your situation may be different depending on the speaker and the mixer and the DAW and everything else. Now, the size of the speaker does matter. And I think the range that you can use are probably as small as 6-inch, and you're going to look for a woofer. So a 6-inch woofer up to maybe a 12-inch woofer. Now this particular one I literally found at the side of a road. It's out of an old Fisher home stereo speaker. It's 12-inch, which really, it's kind of big. I mean, when you stick it in front of the bass drum, it ends up taking, all that space up that really doesn't need to be taken up. So I would say if you can go for a smaller speaker, you should. But these were free, so that was great. Now, you need to mount this in front of the bass drum some way, but you don't really need it in a box or anything else. You could just put the speaker like this. You could have someone hold it in front of the bass drum. That would be fine. Some people use the magnet and just clip it to a stand or whatever. It doesn't matter. So you just need it in front of the bass drum. Some people have used actual drum shells to mount the speaker in the drum shell, and that's really more for looks. It has no functional aspect to it, other than maybe you could use a drum shell, mounting hardware, to mount it a certain way. But what I did was I had some leftover plywood, it's just scrap plywood, so I just made a couple of plywood boxes. Again, it doesn't change the sound at all, other than the back here I did leave open. So if you close that box up, that will change the sound, because that affects how the speaker cone moves back and forth. But as long as you leave it open, that's all that really matters. And so this box is really just to protect the speaker, so I can, stack it somewhere without causing damage to the speaker. And as far as the quality of the speaker, I think a lower quality speaker is actually better. You don't want, the cone to be made of some special plastic material or anything like that. Really just a cheap paper cone is all you want, and an old cheap speaker is fine, really. It doesn't matter whether it's 8 ohm or 4 ohm. It really isn't important. Really all you need this thing for is so that speaker cone moves back and forth and it has a magnet. That's about all you need. The quality or the tone that you get out of the speaker will vary depending on the size of the speaker and the natural resonance of the speaker. So what we're really doing here, you could call it a microphone in a sense, but it's also a trigger in a sense. The sound that you're getting from this is partially the tone from the drum itself. And I did test that because I put this speaker in front of other bass drums with a different tuning, and it is slightly different. But a big part of it is also the natural resonance of the cone itself. So what you're actually getting as far as sound is part of the tone of the bass drum, but also part the speaker itself. So I tried 2 different speakers. One was this old 12-inch Fisher speaker, which is just a cheap paper cone, and it's really not a very good speaker. And I also went on Amazon and I found a $15, this is a 7.5-inch speaker, I think. It's $15, the cheapest one I could find. It's made of paper. And I just wanted to see if there's any difference between the two. And there is. You can tell a difference in sound. The smaller speaker tends to be a little bit of a tighter sound from it. It has less resonance. The frequency is different. I wouldn't say, I guess it is slightly higher, but it's not dramatically different, but it's different. So, I don't think it's that super critical which speaker you use, other than you just don't want something that's really stiff. You want it to be able to move back and forth. Now, the point of this, once you get, this thing set up, you get the sound coming into your DAW or to your mixer if you go analog. At the end of this, you're not going to use this as your only source of sound for the bass drum. It's just not that kind of sound. What you're going to use this for is to mix in with your regular microphone that you have set up. Now, for me, I have a microphone mounted inside the bass drum itself, and that sounds fine. I really didn't have a big issue with it. I just wanted to try this as a goof. And so what you're going to do is use that microphone in the drum as your main sound source. And what this does is it adds a little depth and a little heft to the sound, if you will. So you won't use this as your primary source. You'll just mix it in until it sounds nice. So what I'm going to do is I'll do some samples for you, and we'll play that out at the end of this video here. And I'll try, the big speaker, the little speaker. We'll try it alone so you can hear what it sounds like. We'll mix it in and just give you some different scenarios to understand. So, but to answer the question that I posed at the beginning of this video, do you need to make this? Really you probably don't. It's the kind of thing where if you have some time on your hand or you have an old speaker lying around and you just want to have some fun with it, it's an interesting thing to do. But for most people, I don't think this is something you need to do.